Welcome to Elevate, the masterclass where we dissect the elements of exceptional achievement and lifestyle design with a focus on personal growth and real estate investing. Now, here's your host, Tyler Chesser.
Elevate Nation, welcome back. This is Tyler Chesser. I'm so thankful to have you here, and I am blessed and grateful to be sitting with Jillian Sidoti. Jillian, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I've had a lot of fun just chatting it up before the show here, and really just laughing, honestly, enjoying life. And I know we're going to have a lot of fun today. We're going to serve some people. So what do you say about that? Welcome again to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I just want to be able to give anybody whatever advice they need, when it comes to raising private capital or, life in general, if I can be of service.
Absolutely. Well, I want to welcome Elevate Nation back because it's time to take it to another level. We're going to absolutely raise the bar today. I want to welcome you back to the show where our mission is to identify and apply how the best of the best raise the bar personally and professionally to achieve greatness in real estate and beyond. And we're going to talk habits, mindset, routines, systems, tools, strategies, and so much more from an individual like Jillian, so you can elevate to a life without limits like she's doing, like so many others are doing as well, through the vehicle of real estate, through the commitment of constant never-ending improvement through personal growth and, the combination of those two factors, which can really give you anything that you want in your life. And so this is a masterclass for leaders and those looking to achieve uncommon results and purposeful outcomes through real estate investing and ultimately in their lives. If you're enjoying the show, we certainly would appreciate if you subscribed, if you gave us a rating, a 5-star review. Certainly is appreciated because you know what? That helps us reach our message to more people. Our goal is to reach millions of people with this message so you can live a life of fulfillment, of joy, of excitement, of adventure, really, which is everything is out there for us if you claim that. So with that said, I want to introduce you to Jillian Sidoti, who is an attorney, a speaker, an entrepreneur, a mama, and a former college professor, forever focused on finding the best and least challenging path for entrepreneurs to find funding for their deals. Jillian has written equity and debt offerings for all kinds of industries, including real estate, biotech, film, software, alcoholic beverage, cannabis, and green tech. Jillian's client list includes Grant Cardone, Merrill of A&E's Flip This House, Tarek Moussa of Flip or Flop, David Goss, Nipsey Hussle, Bigger Pockets, Intisu Biologics.
Oh yeah, that's a fun one. Inside to Biologics, yeah.
Oh, okay, that's a tough one. And BioLife 4D, as well as CF Capital with myself and Brian Flaherty. So we appreciate everything that Jillian does. And Jillian is also the author of the Crowdfunding Myth, debunking the myths surrounding crowdfunding. As a public speaker, Jillian offers fun and relatable content that leaves the audience with a deeper understanding of the legalities of and psychology behind raising capital. Her signature talk, Private Money Rockstar, draws from Jillian's previous experience in the music industry with the intention of empowering the entrepreneur to be a money-raising rockstar. She's a founding partner of Crowdfunding Lawyers, LLP, established in 2014. And their clients have gone on to raise over $4 billion in capital for real estate. So with that said, Jillian, again, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself more behind the bio.
Like I said, I actually was in the music industry. We ran a record label. I had actually one point in time dropped out of law school so that I could pursue this dream of being in the music industry. And we were completely undercapitalized. And it didn't go as planned. Even though we had some major successes, we always were like a little behind the 8 ball in terms of having enough money to do anything. Even if we were making money, we didn't have enough money to accomplish what we wanted to accomplish. So I ended up going back to law school. And when I got out of law school, I got into real estate development and started doing condo conversions down in San Diego. And that's when my eyes were open to this whole new world of, not using your own money, but to find other people's money to leverage and not just build wealth for yourself, but build wealth for those around you as well through using your time and resources and talent and using their capital.
That's awesome. That's a really interesting and unique story of how you got interested or really involved and committed in real estate. And it's so interesting as well because you're chasing your passion of being in the music business, and then maybe practicality set in and you were like, wait a minute, we don't have the money or the resources. So then you found a new solution for that in sort of a roundabout way. So talk to me more about that situation. I mean, were you feeling a little bit like you were maybe didn't want to do that pivot, or how did that scenario go down?
I think I was just tired. We had been, what ended up happening, what was the moment, the breaking point for me was we had broken down in a place called Memphis, Nebraska in our tour bus for like the 20th time. Like this, I mean, we were just constantly band-aiding everything we did. And, in doing that, I finally just said, I don't want to live off the dollar menu at McDonald's anymore, because that's essentially what we were doing, and wanted to have a different life that wasn't, it's a different type of poverty. I don't want to insult those who are actually in poverty by calling my situation poverty, but
yeah.
Eating off the McDonald's menu, I had a poverty mindset. At least I started getting a poverty mindset. And I was eating terrible food. I wasn't healthy. I was super stressed out. I was always worried about money. And if I knew then what I know now, I think things would have been a lot different. And I do have, I know this isn't a show about like lamenting on your past, but I do have a lot of regrets about that. I wish I just knew things differently. And I guess everybody in the world, every adult, everybody who's well past 40 can say they have one of those moments in their life. If I knew then what I know now, things might have been different.
Right. And I was having this exact conversation with someone else today, just about mindset and how important it is, and especially mindset along the lines of wealth, or, the other side of things. You just mentioned a poverty mindset. And I firmly believe, that 80% of your success in anything is your psychology, and 20% is the mechanics. So it's really interesting that you were able to look back and say, wow, I had a poverty mindset. So I'd be curious to know if you would sort of describe that and maybe go into a little bit more depth of what that was for you and what is a poverty mindset.
Well, a lot of it comes down to like just not taking the appropriate risks, being penny wise, pound foolish. Like, for example, the reason why we got ourselves into that situation in the first place is I bought an RV off of eBay for $1,500. That was penny wise, but it turned out to be pound foolish because we ended up broken down in multiple times in the United States and Canada because I didn't spend the upfront money to make it work in the right way. So I was just constantly, like I said, band-aiding a wound that kept bleeding. That's just one of the many ways that you can end up having a poverty mindset. Now, I've always been an incredibly optimistic person. Like, we're going to figure this out. And we did. That entire tour, we did. We figured it out. We were like, okay, like our spirit was never broken until finally I just thought, I don't want to live like this anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to be constantly worrying about what money we have. I don't want to say like, okay, we're not going to eat well tonight because we don't have enough money. I want to, and look, I gotta put some things out there before I go any further, just to be very clear. I am a white, educated woman who grew up very well and didn't grow up poor at all. And so I don't want to confuse this with, the young inner city kid or, who doesn't see a way out. And I don't want to confuse this with, the kid in Appalachia who got shoes for the first time when he was 5. I don't want to confuse any of what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about like not really trying to solve problems, but solving them with the wrong solution. And that's what I constantly did. My solution to my problems was to charge it on my credit card at the time. And if I had known I could put together an offering, I could go out and raise capital. I could talk about the virtues of our business and what we've done, and my brain and my husband's acumen for music, that we could really build a business here. And had I done that, I probably wouldn't be talking to you today. So there's not a lot of, regret in the sense that didn't happen, because I have everything kind of turned out great as it is. But had I thought about what are our virtues, what can we offer, and are we worthy of somebody else's money, it might have been different. And that's what I see a lot with raising private money now is people go, I don't know anybody. I can't raise any money. I can't do this. It's a lot of I can'ts instead of trying to find out how we can.
This episode of Elevate is brought to you by CF Capital, a real estate investment firm formed by myself and my partner, Brian Flaherty, where we invest in multifamily real estate communities across the Southeast United States. If you'd like to learn more about our approach, our mission, our acquisition criteria, and how you can learn more about future opportunities, visit cfcapllc.com. Again, that's cfcapllc.com. Yeah, how we can. And just, switching your mindset on what I don't have versus what is possible. And in my opinion, the more that I learn about this concept, the more I recognize that anything is possible if you allow yourself to believe that and to commit to that and surround yourself with folks like yourself, who not only share that mindset, but also have the tools and the tactics and, the approach to help you do that. Who turns your mind on to the fact that abundance was possible? Or, was it just through the pain of that moment that you just figured it out through your own process, or how did that happen for you?
I don't think I didn't have, the funny thing is I don't think I didn't have an abundance mindset. I did think that I could have all these things. I just think I took the wrong approach to things. Again, not looking at all the possibilities of how to make things happen. And I thought a huge part of it is I thought I had to do it on my own. And that was my biggest downfall. I thought, I still do this to this day to a certain extent. I thought I had to put it on my credit card. I had to pay for this. I didn't even go to a bank to see if I could get a loan. I just was like, I got to figure this out. I got to go work a $10 an hour job and save as much money as possible and then put as much money back into the business as possible. And that's just, you just throw in small amounts of cash at a problem. It's like trying to make payments on, $200 a month payments on a $500,000 home. You're never gonna dig yourself out of that hole by doing that.
No, that's so true. And just the shift in thinking to realize that not only is there more out there, but there's other people who benefit from this as well. There's other people who want to participate perhaps in an opportunity. Maybe the bank would have loved to given you a loan to earn some interest, and so then you could leverage that. And same goes with real estate investors. You see this all the time where folks.
It goes doubly for real estate investors, because there's doctors out there who are not going to stop being doctors so that they can start real estate investing, right? They're just not. And you're providing them with an opportunity as much as they're providing you with an opportunity, if not more so. Mm-hmm. Because you can always get more money. And that was something I didn't realize at the time, of course. But you can always get more money. You cannot get more time. Mm. And you just can't. And you might not. And a lot of these professionals who want to get into real estate investing, who are killing themselves trading time for money, doctors, lawyers, scientists, whatever, highly educated people who make a lot of money in what they do are trading time for money. You're giving them a solution to not trade time for money anymore.
Well, not only is it a solution for not trading time for money anymore, but it's also a solution for, all the tax advantages. And, it's, they may still be very passionate about being a doctor or whatever profession that your investor or partner is in. But, there's so many other benefits. And I think if we open our mind to that, to say, wow, well, it's like I had this conversation with someone recently where, 0% of zero is zero. And, if you can give someone else an opportunity to participate, yes, of course, you're going to have to give some away. But guess what? Everyone gets greater opportunities because of that. So I think it's really exciting. And one thing you mentioned in terms of your own journey was that you recognized that you didn't have to do it alone. And, along the path of, becoming an attorney and doing what you're doing now, obviously, your greatest clients, I would imagine, have the greatest team. So talk to me about yourself as a team member and your team as a team member of your clients. I mean, what are some of the biggest issues that sponsors should be aware of as it relates to crowdfunding in the current legal environment?
Yeah, I think the thing that people don't realize is that the state securities boards and the SEC's number one priority is to protect investors. And it might not seem like that's what they're doing all the time, and I get that. But that is supposed to be their number one goal. And so if you're not being a good steward of your investors' capital, then you're a target for those entities. So you have to be a good steward of your investors' money. And that might mean bringing on people to assist you with that in the sense that you can't do it all. And I tell people this all the time. I talk about the team that you need to put together. And I always put this slide up, and I put a bunch of different roles on the slide, CEO, marketer, investor relations, bookkeeper, attorney, et cetera, et cetera. And I put all these roles up there, and I ask people, what is the most important role? These roles are all roles that you need in order to raise capital effectively. But what's the most important one? And no one ever gets it right. And the answer is the bookkeeper. If you don't have great books and records together for your investors, for the CPA to do their job at the end of the year to get the tax returns done, for your investor relations person to make out the report, to put together the reports to the investors, it's all for naught. I could do an amazing job putting together legal documents for you. And this has happened on more than one occasion where I do a great job and the issuer just screws the whole thing up by not reporting to investors regularly, by not being a good steward of their money, by not keeping good books and records. And it all starts with keeping good books and records. So if you're not a good bookkeeper, that's not in your wheelhouse, then you need to find somebody to do it. And I'll tell you right now, I taught accounting and finance for years at the University of Redlands. I wouldn't trust me for 5 minutes with my own books because I'm not going to do it. I don't have time. Yeah. I'm just not going to do it. I don't even do my own. Like one of the things I have a friend of mine who does my personal books, and we haven't updated in a long time. And I literally begged her this week, please, can we get this done? Because I haven't done it. I don't keep up with it. So stuff like that, that's the kind of thing you really want to think about when raising capital is putting together that team. Because if one of those things, if you have this balancing act, I always think of the plates spinning on the sticks. Yeah. And if you let go of one of those sticks, you're going to break a plate and eventually break all the plates. And we don't want that to happen. So.
Oh, and I mean, the concept that this makes me think of is that little things are really big things. And most people would think of your list of team members and say, oh, bookkeepers at the bottom of the totem pole. Yeah. But at the end of the day, if the rubber doesn't meet the road in terms of the operations and, the flow of capital and the flow back of capital to your investors and into where it's appropriate. I mean, are you paying your bills appropriately? And are you making decisions that are appropriate based on real facts? So I couldn't agree more. I think there's so much value in that. And you're really more than an attorney. You're more than, an SEC sort of facing attorney. So, I mean, how would you describe sort of being an advisor? I mean, how else do you advise your clients beyond sort of the construction and the operation of their team?
So what I basically tell them is that you need to, if you're not good at something, hire somebody to do it for you, because the time it will take you to learn how to do things is not worth it. So for example, like a lot of times what my clients will do is try to build their own website, and that's just a waste of your time. If you're an amazing real estate entrepreneur, why are you spending time being a webmaster? So find somebody to do it for you. But the big thing is that, look, you need to have a good outward facing, image when you're out raising capital. And then you need to back it up with great systems. And so what are those systems include? A good database, an amazing bookkeeper, books and records, and a good investor relationship, model. And what I mean by that is right up front, you're going to tell the investors how you're going to report to them, and then you're going to do it. So if you tell them, I'm going to report to you every quarter on the 15th day after the quarter ends, then you best do that. And just don't tell them what you're going to do. Tell them how you're going to do it. We're going to do it on Zoom. And then I'll give you the recording when the Zoom call is over. Or I'm going to write it up and I'm going to distribute it. Or, however it is, that's what you need to do. Or maybe you want to do it once a month. Once a month, we're going to do an investor call. That's when you can ask all your questions. We'll record them. We'll archive them. You can listen to them anytime you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's great. I think it does come down to communication. And one of the things, just to highlight from what you said earlier, folks who are getting perhaps heat from the SEC in different ways are folks who are, they're not delivering on their promises, or they're not properly communicating, or they're not doing what they said they were going to do. So I think there's a lot of value in that. Let's talk about for passive investors. What are some tips that you would suggest for passive investors prior to executing a private placement memorandum? How would you advise them legally?
A big part of it would be just making sure. The funny thing is, and this is probably advice you've never heard before. The big part of it is to read the operating agreement before you read the PPM. Because the operating agreement is actually the legal document that counts. And so you want to read the operating agreement and make sure it says what you've been told it should say. I've actually found on more than one occasion operating agreements that didn't match the PPM at all. And that's unfortunate, because then at the end of the day, most of the clients read the PPM and think oh, okay, this is what it is. I don't have to read the operating agreement. And then they don't read the operating agreement. And then they find out the hard truth later. And why does this happen? Bad drafting on the part of an attorney, and then the issuer not reading it. I read an operating agreement, if I can share this story with you.
Please.
I read a operating agreement one day that said, stuff. And then in the definitions, it said something about voting rights. And it said, in order to make any major decision regarding the company needs it said something like you need 2/3 vote. And this person alone has 2/3 vote and can make any of these decisions by themselves.
Wow.
I didn't even tell you the best part yet. That person, I was I don't remember reading that person's name even in the PPM. So they were referring that somebody other than the management of the company had complete and utter control over the company.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a mistake?
So you were going, what's that?
And it wasn't a mistake?
I don't know what it was, but I just told the person, because this was a situation where I was reviewing it for an investor, and I just told the investor, they didn't even take the time to read their own documents. Is this somebody you really want to invest with?
Yeah. Yep.
So even if it was just a mistake, that's a horrible mistake to have. There's one thing if you have, and trust me, I'm not perfect at drafting. I'm not a robot.
Sure.
And so sometimes there are errors that are truly just, errors. So for example, you write 7% and then in parentheses it says 8% or something to that effect. But if it says 7% throughout the whole thing and everywhere else it says 7%, you know what the right answer is. It's supposed to be 7%. But to have, a different distribution schedule than the one that's in the PPM because it wasn't drafted the same could have serious tax consequences.
Totally.
Forget distribution consequences, maybe tax consequences. Maybe you get paid in a different order than you were expecting, things like that. So you always want to start with reading the operating agreement and making sure that the operating agreement says what you've been told it should say.
Yeah, I always recommend that passive investors, I always think that the word passive is a little bit misleading, because even if you're passive or a limited partner in a syndication, you should still take extreme ownership for the fact that you're agreeing to terms and you are, really the master of your own capital. And so at the end of the day, you have to make decisions, thoughtfully, and you need to read the entire document. I love that, reading, the length of the operating agreement and making sure that it matches up to the PPM. It seems basic, but most people probably don't do it. So
they don't even read the operating agreement most of the time. That's why I give that advice. And the other thing is too, I just think it's hard to go out there and know what's good and what isn't good. I'm dealing with a guy right now who invested $100,000 with a gentleman who had a slick presentation, and him and his other friend, another investor, have now, between the two of them, invested $250,000 and can't get any calls returned. And that's unfortunate, so. Yeah. You want to just be really mindful, see what this person is doing, see if they have a track record, and do a quick background check. It never hurts to do a background check and see if they have a lot of lawsuits in their or bankruptcies or anything in their past. That's
another interesting one. Most people don't do background checks on who they invest with. They take their word for it, and obviously trust. I think people, they obviously succeed in the long term by doing what they say they're going to do, but they can perhaps win in the short term by, misleading people. So I do think it's interesting, but I also think it's very fascinating that most people don't do a background check and learn more about who they're partnering with. But with that said, I'd be curious to just switch gears slightly with regard to Regulation A. How has that experience been for you guys in comparison, or maybe in contrast with doing a 506C or B offering, just from your own legal perspective as well as the issuer?
So that's a great question. I talk more people out of doing a Regulation A than I talk them into it, because I feel like a lot of people who come to me to do a Reg A, and for those of your audience that doesn't know, a Reg A allows you to go out and raise capital from any investor up to $50 million, and you can do general solicitation. So it's basically a public offering. And the reason why I talk more people out of it than talk them into it is because it is my experience that these issuers don't understand the type of investor they're dealing with. They're dealing with people who don't read. They really, really, really don't read, and they don't read and they don't listen, and they hear what they want to hear. And that can even be true for accredited investors to a certain extent, but it usually isn't to the same extent as an unaccredited investor. And an unaccredited investor will be like, I invested $500 whole dollars with you, and you haven't returned any of my phone calls. And it's like, yeah, who else hasn't returned any of your phone calls when you invested $500? Amazon,
yeah,
Exxon, Microsoft, Apple. And they don't get that. They think you're different than those companies. Like, they know they can't call those companies, but they can call you. So you need to just understand where your place is in this world, where your place is in the mind of investors. And if you tell them you're going to make 22% on your money, they don't understand. Maybe that 22% means over time. Mm-hmm. They think they're supposed to get 22% on their money annualized basis or something. So these are the things that you kind of got to be aware of when you're going into this, number one. And number two, you got to understand that you have a lot of obligations to the SEC, and you're going to be under a Microsoft by both investors and the SEC, and actually not just by the two of them, but also the public at large. If we have learned anything from this experience, is that, Grant Cardone, who's definitely my biggest Reg A client, has really, he doesn't want to do them anymore. It's that simple. We did 2 Reg A's for him. They went well, and he started on a third one. And this is all public information. I'm not giving you any information that's not public.
But you would give me the inside information if I really asked for it, though, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely, right. But the third one we submitted to the SEC. We're in the process of getting it approved. And he called me and said, I don't want to do this. I don't want to deal with unaccredited investors anymore. They're a pain in the ass. And
that's interesting.
It's true. He said it publicly. You guys are driving me crazy. I have people making videos about me, talking about how I'm a terrible person and I'm losing everybody's money. I don't need to do that. I don't need to deal with that. I'll deal with my accredited investors who write me checks for $100,000 and don't give me any grief. I'd rather do that. And he's taken a lot of risks. But another client I had a while ago, Tulsa Real Estate Fund, same thing. They came out with this big offering. They were taking investments as little as $500. And those are the investors who are giving him the hardest time. So, you just got to be aware of what you're walking into. Now, if you look at companies like Fundrise, Realty Mogul, they've had great success with Reg A. I've had other clients, and by the way, Grant Cardone had great success with Reg A. He's closing in on $100 million right now under Regulation A. So it can be a blessing and a curse, as they say. And I continue to do them. I have 2 biotech companies that I'm coming out with this week. I have another real estate fund that I'm coming out with next week. I have another fund called Own Our Own Fund, which I think is going to be incredibly successful. That's the one with David Gross and Nipsey Hussle's former partner. And that's all about the community investing in its own communities. So I do think it's a good thing. And I think Reg A is a very positive thing from the perspective, like now we can all get in on the ground floor of these deals. But as an issuer, you need to go in, eyes wide open, know what you're getting into, understand what the risks are, understand what the rewards are before you do a Regulation A.
Are you someone who's seriously looking to elevate your life, your business, your real estate portfolio, your cash flow, your deal opportunities, your access to opportunities, your network this year? Well, if that's you, then I invite you to visit coachwithtyler.com, because I'm currently opening up a few coaching spots for people like you who want to close the gap from where you are to where you want to be, and really, expand that beyond your wildest dreams and explode your business, explode your deal opportunities, explode your vision for what you're looking to create. If that's you, I invite you to visit coachwithtyler.com. I really have to tell you that this is not for everyone. This is only for those who are decisive. They're committed. They're willing to do whatever it takes. They're willing to invest time, energy, and resources into themselves to get to where they want to be and to live a life without limits, to elevate to a life without limits, which is really what we're all about on this show. If that is you, again, I invite you to visit coachwithtyler.com. Again, that's coachwithtyler.com. Yeah, no, that's super valuable. I appreciate you sharing that. I appreciate you giving us a look behind the curtain there. I think it's always important for folks to consider what are all the pros and cons and prioritize those pros and cons. What does this make sense for the outcome of what you're looking to accomplish, and make your decision based on that. But it's also great to learn from, the pros and cons of other people's experiences, which is the great part of, a podcast like this, is because we can learn, hey, what did Grant Cardone, what did he love about the Reg A, and what did he hate about it? And what can we avoid ourselves? So thank you for sharing that, Jillian. I wanted to transition just a little bit yourself. Obviously Elevate's all about, obviously growing a portfolio in real estate, because of the fact that it can give you anything you want practically. As we kind of started our discussion, you had some practical, challenges that you encountered on your road to your, music career, passionate, career there. But obviously you transitioned in serving in terms of, the practical side of things in terms of real estate and what that vehicle can do for people. But beyond that, it is about personal growth and investing in yourself and creating sort of, the vehicle of yourself to become the higher version of that. So I'd love to know, how are you investing in yourself these days? How are you improving your own skills and your own mindset and all of that?
So one of the things I love doing, and I haven't been able to do it since COVID broke out, I'm hoping to go back to doing it here over the summer, was I volunteered at the food pantry every week. And I just loved doing that. It was like the best job. Just go over there once a week, and I would cook. And the thing about food pantry cooking is you have to deal with whatever you have. So it was like a little adventure every week. I'd get in and go, what do we have this week? Oh, we have a bunch of frozen chicken. It's chicken stew. We have a bunch of eggs. Okay, we're going to have some kind of breakfast thing. Oh, we have, ground beef. I'll make chop suey, like stuff like that. So that was just, it just brought me such joy, to be perfectly honest, was doing that. And then I also have another podcast called Last Life Ever, which is totally outside of real estate. And it's myself and another lawyer who just talk to people who are doing interesting things. They may be extraordinary people doing interesting things. They may be very ordinary people doing interesting things, but it's just interesting things that can make you have the best possible version of your life, whatever that may be. people who are adopting kids. How did they adopt kids? How did they get kids out of the foster care system? People who traveled around the world with their children. People who are, I'm talking about children, but that's not all we talk about. Home, because my partner doesn't even have kids. So he'd be like, why are you talking about all the things with kids? How to homeschool. Our guest last week was like, because we're having all these challenges with distance learning now, right? So how to homeschool your children. We also had our guest on Monday is a futurologist who talks about what the future holds for us, not from a psychic point of view, but from a data science. He's actually a PhD, so we're going to be talking to him on Monday. We had Nikki Gumbel, who is a big evangelical, he's not actually so much of an evangelist, but he runs a program called the Alpha Program, which is the first introduction for people who've never heard of Christ before. And the reason why we interviewed him is not because we're a religious program, but because he was a lawyer. His whole family was lawyers. He was Jewish. He went to college in Cambridge, England, and read the New Testament and said, oh, this is the way, and abandoned his life as a lawyer, abandoned his life as, he was an atheist. Even though he was raised Jewish, he was an atheist.
Wow.
Abandoned his life as an atheist and started a program that is now in prisons across the world, introducing people to Christ. Things like that, just people who are doing extraordinary things, whether you're religious or not. That's not the point. The point is like, how do you make these major changes? How do you make these major decisions and go and do something different in your life? And so those are the things that, the law firm supports that joy. And the joy I get out of the law firm is helping entrepreneurs build their business. I'm not doing family law where people are getting divorces and fighting over kids. I'm not doing criminal law where people are desperately trying to save people from a prison situation. I'm not dealing with business litigation where business partners are fighting, or personal injury where somebody's hurt and has to fight for their rights to get paid for that injury. So I have the best possible law.
You do. You really do. Well, and you're surrounding yourself with inspiration, not only in what you do, for your business, but then also in other ways. And it really just shines through you because you show up with so much joy and so much energy and so much fun and so much happiness. So, one of the things that we kind of started our discussion, prior to starting this recording was gratitude. And that was one of the things that you were just feeling a depth of gratitude, with all of the things that you've experienced recently. And it's my feeling that the state of gratitude is the state of receivership as well. And it seems like, that's something that's compounded for you. I mean, what else would you say has contributed to just your joy and how you show up with so much happiness and energy in everything that you do in your life?
I have a great family. The thing is like, and I'm going to share something else that's like super personal, that I had 2 kids who got COVID. And that in a lot of ways has sucked the life out of me. But the things that I focused on during this time is I live in the United States. I live in a very nice home. I have money, and they're not dead. I hate to put it that bluntly, but it's true. Like there's other people whose kids who've been on ventilators, or they got the inflammation syndrome where they had to go to the hospital and, had all kinds of issues. And I didn't have any of those issues. I had to take my 12-year-old to the emergency room a couple of times because he couldn't breathe or whatever, but we got through. He didn't get admitted. So you just kind of look at gratitude from the point of like, well, this could be way worse. This could be, really terrible. And it's not, and there's a way, everything's, there's a woman named Marie Forleo who spoke at the 10X conference. I'd never heard of her before. And one of the things she said is everything's figure-outable.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so true. And a lot, especially if you live in the United States, if you, and I don't want to turn this into a rah-rah, I'm proud to be an American thing, but there is something to be said about living in the US and the availability of not just the availability, but the ability to be an entrepreneur, to blaze your own path and your own trail, and to success. And most problems, if you put enough effort into it, you can figure it out and you can solve that problem.
That's so true. And it's one of my mantras that I, follow so deeply in my life, is that where focus goes, energy flows. And, I know that's true because
that's awesome.
When I focus on my problems, I get more problems. But when I focus on, there's opportunities here. Maybe there's a lesson. Maybe there's something that I'm becoming through this challenge. Or, also, wow, wait a minute. I have all these great things. I have the opportunity to, to speak with you and to speak with our listeners today. And, how many other great things we have. I've got a great, cup of water here. It's amazing all of the great things that we have when we start to focus on the good in our life, and what more good can come to us when we do that. And the energy that we bring, I believe, is what really kind of sets us up for that. And so I appreciate that. And, the other thing that I think is so important is to, we talked earlier about mindset, and you talked about your, previous poverty mindset, and now, where you live in abundance in terms of how you show up. I'd be curious to know, how else are you using your own mind, your own psychology, maybe even to consciously set up habits in your life or in your business that have served you and compounded on themselves?
Can I tell you, I got to be perfectly honest, my habits right now are the worst. So if anybody out there wants to life coach me into better habits, before COVID, I had amazing, great life habits. And I don't know, I just can't get back into that group. So maybe we can all get a little support group going together. But my habits are the worst. I was getting up every morning and going and working out. Now the gym's closed. And yes, I could run outside, or I could get on my exercise bike that I bought during COVID and have been on twice. But I just haven't done it. So, actually, if anybody wants to coach me through that, I'm opening that door. One of the big habits though that I have developed during COVID that I am very proud of is just trying really hard to be attentive to somebody's and maybe this isn't the greatest habit actually, and I got to manage it better, but really trying to be okay, this person wrote me an email there, and I get a ton of email. So this is where it becomes difficult. This person wrote me an email and they're expecting a response, and I want to respond to them right now, right away, get in front of them and let them know that even if it's your email's really long, but I totally intend to get back to you on this so that, they feel like I'm touching them, I'm reaching out to them. And what I try to do now, and some of you out there might judge this as a bad use of resources, but I copy somebody else in my office on that email so that they can hold me accountable to make sure I get back to that person. And so what's really the moral of the story, because maybe you're not overwhelmed with emails like I am. The moral of the story is getting somebody who's accountable, who holds you accountable rather.
Yeah.
So that's what I've created this system where I have another human being holding me accountable for my actions in regards to these clients. So now I got to get somebody to hold me accountable, have accountability partner when it comes to working out, accountability partner when it comes to eating better, accountability partner when it comes to doing, other things. And I think that's a huge way to, if you want to establish a great habit, that's one way to do it.
No, I could not agree more. I mean, I know myself, when the path, when challenges come my way, when my path gets a little rocky, the path of least resistance then kicks in. It's what? I don't want to go over that. So who's going to hold me accountable? Who's going to remind me what I committed myself to? So whether you invest in coaching, whether you have a colleague, whether you share your intentions with someone else and they can just check in with you, on a weekly or however long basis, or, if you've got a problem with email, copy somebody else so they can call you out and say, look, you have not responded here yet. Because we all know it's about communication. It's about, connecting and collaborating with others, especially in real estate. So I appreciate that. I also appreciate just how real you are. And it's hey, I haven't been great on my habits. And I think we all have to admit that from time to time. we're not machines. We can't just be perfect 100% of the time. So we ebb and flow, and we're aware of it. And then we try to do better next time. So I think there's a lot of value in that. And I'm sure a lot of the listeners can relate to that. Many of us fall off the wagon, so to speak, in different areas, but what can we do to pick ourselves up and say, you know what, I'm focusing now on the future and I'm not dwelling on the past or whatever that may be. So I love that. And Jillian, I'd be surprised, or not surprised, I'd be interested to know, what are you most excited about these days? What's really kind of getting you jazzed up these days?
I'm very much looking forward to the summer. I gotta say that, my kids and I had all kinds of plans for the summer, including travel and Boy Scout things. All those things have been canceled. And so the reason why I'm excited about the summer, despite all those exciting things we were supposed to do, is it's giving us an opportunity to start with a clean slate. We have no obligations, right? We had an obligation to travel, to visit family. We don't have that obligation anymore. Although I really wanted to do that. I'm trying to Pollyanna this, so give me a minute. My boys had an obligation to go to Boy Scout camp, which again, they we all really wanted them to do that. But now we don't have any of those obligations, so we can start over and say, okay, what were things we would have done that we can still do that we couldn't do because those obligations were in place? So that's kind of what, it's kind of exciting. We can kind of figure those things out now. And my kids really, and I'm grateful for those obligations being removed, even though we really wanted to do them. And here's why. My kids missed a ton of school because of COVID, because of their personal struggles with being ill. My 12-year-old, for all intents and purposes, failed 6th grade. They can't fail them, but he did. I mean, he didn't finish the work. He was sick. So now, because we don't have those obligations, we can make a plan and in a relaxed manner, get him through 6th grade. So
that's awesome.
I think that's a great opportunity to kind of really spend time with him and get where he needs to be.
Well, I mean, that just goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's like where focus goes, energy flows. I mean, we could say, man, we had all these opportunities to go to Boy Scouts and to go visit family and all these things. Or we could say, okay, well, maybe those opportunities will exist again in the future, but this also gives us a new opportunity now to create something new. And something that may have not existed before. So is there anything that's kind of filled that vacuum for you guys that is really kind of getting you excited?
Yeah, I don't want to tell too many people because I don't want there to be a rush on doing this. But as you may or may not know, a lot of the national parks are slowly starting to open. So one of our plans is to drive to a couple of the national parks, which was a plan we had for next summer. And now we're just accelerating that plan, which I'm really happy about, quite frankly, because now there's no fear of like, oh, we're driving to national parks, so we're missing this other thing over here. Like, we're missing nothing. We can forge our own path. So that's what we're going to do. And the excitement of trying to figure out like a lesson plan for my son and get him a tutor, somebody he gets to choose who his teacher is this summer. Cause I'm looking for a younger person who he kind of relates to. And I think this is a great opportunity for everybody, like I really do. I think there's a lot of opportunity here. People might not share that thought, and I get it, but that's the way I'm choosing to look at it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I know that the system that you've created through your company and all the, all of the clients that you serve has created the opportunity for you to, make these type of choices and make these type of decisions. What would you say if you had to distill it all down to maybe one sort of overall arching thought? What is the driving force behind what you do? My kids, for sure. I want a life for them that is full of opportunity. And then I want them to pick whatever opportunity they want. I grew up in a very, I wouldn't say privileged manner, a very middle-class manner, but there were just certain expectations that
I want to give my kids all the opportunities. And by working and creating a life that is financially set, I can not spoil them, just say, look, like my oldest son wants to be a stand-up comedian. That's the thing he's always said he's wanted to do. And I give him a lot of reality checks on that often. Like, for example, Tyler, you need to learn how to write. You got to know how to write. But at the same time, I don't discourage that dream of wanting to be a stand-up comedian, So it's really, I do what I do so I can give them the opportunities to do what they want to do in the future.
That's amazing. Yeah, what a legacy to leave and what a life to lead. So I want to transition into our rapid fire section. We call it the Rare Air Questionnaire. It's all about pushing the limits and raising the bar so that you can continue to live a life that has no limits and continue to make choices when there's an opportunity to make a new choice and to live a life of adventure, such as what you're doing. So I'd love to ask you just a few questions here. If you had to point to, 2 or 3 of the most impactful books that you've read, what would those be and why?
Okay. One book I listen to on Audible, and I almost listen to anytime I can't sleep, I just put it on because Eckhart Tolle's voice is so soothing. I read The Power of Now. The Power of Now will change your perspective on everything. The Power of Now has gotten me through some of the worst, in my perception, the worst times in my life. And it continues to I can't say enough good things about that book. And then a book I just love is probably my favorite book of all time is The Count of Monte Cristo, about a guy who could have gotten the worst, could have just gone and, set fire to people's houses and had the worst revenge. And instead his revenge was living a life full of wealth, both with people and in money. So Count of Monte Cristo, don't read the abridged version, read the full 1,300 pages. It will be well worth it.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. And then, of course, the Bible. But the Bible, I always feel like you got to get some guidance on that one. So
For sure. Yeah, there's a lot to digest there. And no, thank you for that. We'll put links in the show notes to those books there. I just always think there's so much value in investing in your own mind, investing in your own psychology, and changing the way that you think and being open to changing the way that you think. I know one example when I read The Power of Now, like you, it was like, wow, I needed to really, question a lot of, the approaches that I had, from a mindful perspective. And so I just think there's so much value in learning and continuing to grow and update your thinking. So thanks for sharing that. Aside from our discussion that we've had today, what would you say is the biggest way that you elevate your life on a daily basis?
Truth be told, and this has only been since COVID, I do, and I don't even know where I put it, but I'll show you this. Oh no, it's right here. I do the rosary every day. I'm Catholic, so some of you are going to be like, what? Okay, I just tuned out, but I do the rosary every day. I actually do it with a group of ladies at 7:30 in the morning. Every day we do the rosary. It just sets a tone for the rest of my day. I don't think you necessarily have to do the rosary, but meditating this is a form of meditation. That's all this is. So you can do any kind of meditation, and I think that will set a tone for the rest of your day. What I used to do before I did the rosary every day pre-COVID is my kids and I would drive to a lake that was on the way to their school, and we would sit there and do transcendental meditation and then a little prayer prior to driving them off to school. So if you don't know what transcendental meditation is, it's what a lot of the celebrities do, but I find it to be very useful. You just get a mantra, you sit there for 10 to 20 minutes, and you just think of the mantra over and over and over again while you're, breathing, you're mindfully breathing, and that will set your mind right for the rest of the day.
That's awesome. That's really cool that you share that with your kids as well. And that sounds like an amazing experience. So something that maybe a lot of us can apply to our own lives. Really appreciate you sharing that. And obviously you do so much to really elevate others around you, but I would be curious to know, beyond what we've already talked about today, what's the biggest way that you elevate others around you?
A huge part of it is just particularly with my employees, is to listening. I try to be very mindful and listen to what their needs are and I work with a bunch of moms, right? So all of us, they have needs because their kids have needs. So I try to be a little mindful of that so that they can do the best that they can do at their job by being mindful of what their needs are. So for example, Nancy's a perfect example, and she's my partner, so she doesn't even fall into the same category as everybody else. But Nancy, like the other day, was like, I need to take my kids boating, on a Wednesday. And I never question, I need to take my kids boating, because here's exactly what happened when she told me that on Tuesday. I need to take my kids boating tomorrow. They need to get out of the house. They need to go do something. We need. And I'm hearing this and I'm like, okay, great. I'll see you later. And Tuesday night, I'm getting emails from her at 11:17 at night because she knew that I knew I wasn't going to bother her while she was going to go boating, but she didn't want to leave anything undone. And I think that speaks to her personality more than it speaks to me, but you kind of just open the door for people to get those things done, so that they can be the best version of themselves, in other places, like at work. So I think a lot of it has to do with, Stephen Covey's advice in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Is that what it's called? I hope I got the name right. Yeah. First, seek to understand before being understood. I just butchered that. You're looking to understand before you're trying to get understood yourself, is the bottom line.
Yes. And it's amazing the culture that is created from that, because most people want to still do a great job if they have the opportunity to go take their kids boating on a Wednesday. It's not that they want to cut out and play hooky and, ruin the business. It's like sometimes you just need those things. So the understanding creates so much more enthusiasm to produce excellence. And
exactly. Oh, no, absolutely. And I will say my team now wants to be more excellent than ever. And so if you have an employee who's having a moment, you don't give them, the whole rope so that you can't see them anymore because they ran with the rope so far. but you give people enough trust to say, look, I'm trusting you with this, but give them parameters. I'm trusting you with this. I understand you need this. I'm hearing what you're saying, but here's what I need. And as long as you have that understanding, we'll be cool. And that has worked out incredible, especially in the last couple of months of COVID, where everybody has to be trusted to work at home and get their work done and things like that. As a matter of fact, we were talking beforehand, I'm seeing more productivity now from my team than ever before.
Yes. No, that's huge. And, I've noticed the same. And I think it really allows people to shine in their excellent work when you don't have to cloud it with the unnecessary meetings or the unnecessary discussion or the unnecessary distractions sometimes of working in an office. So I do think it's really interesting how that has occurred.
It's funny. And it's so funny because I actually got this book off Audible. As you can tell, I'm into Audible. I got this book, I'm looking it up for you. I got this book off Audible and I started listening to it because it's one of my recommended Audible books. And I started reading it and I didn't know who the author was. And it was read by a woman. And I didn't realize it until after I had read the book that this book is actually a Stephen Covey book as well. And what is it called? Multipliers. Multipliers. So if you guys have a team or you're looking to build you elevate other people, the book Multipliers by Stephen Covey is an excellent book to kind of help you in that, in figuring out how to do that.
Yes. How to multiply each other, how do we rub off on each other to, create more and create more abundance, as we were talking earlier about mindset and psychology and, all of this compounds on itself. So I think there's a ton of value in that. And thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. Wow. Jillian, this has been a ton of fun. Do you have any sort of parting thoughts or words of wisdom that you'd share with Elevate Nation today?
No, I just want anybody who, enjoyed this, feel free to reach out to me, especially on Facebook. I'm a huge Facebooker. I bought into the IPO of Facebook when everybody told me I shouldn't, and now I feel obligated to the company. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And how can the listeners, stay engaged with you beyond Facebook?
You can just go to our website, Crowdfunding Lawyers, or you can email me. But honestly, like if you want to get real response, Facebook Messenger is a great way to do it because it pops right up on my phone and it pops up on my computer, unlike text messages, which is only on my phone, or other communications, which might only be on my computer. So. That's
awesome. We'll put links in the show notes to Jillian everywhere she is, which she's all over the place. But as you can tell, she's awesome. She's genuine. She's herself, and she's providing a lot of value to, real estate syndicators, fund managers, crowdfunding platforms. So definitely want to reach out to her there and engage with her otherwise. But I know that you do have a special offer for the listeners as well regarding your book, right?
I'm going to give you guys all a free copy of my book. All you have to do is go to bit.ly. You guys know those bit.ly links.
Yep.
So bit.ly/Jillian Sidoti book, and that will give you a free copy of my book, Crowdfunding Myth. It's a little old, I want to be honest with you. But go ahead, take a look at it, see what you think. And if you like it, do me a huge favor and write a review on Amazon.
Absolutely. So we'll put that link also in the show notes. And I encourage you to re-listen to the show. If you found a lot of value from this, you may be surprised to know that if you re-listen to the show, you're going to learn something new. And there's going to be some sort of nugget of wisdom that you can apply to your life. And in fact, I would imagine there's at least 3. So what can you do to distill down your top 3 key distinctions, your top 3, takeaways, and what can you do to share that with someone else? Because it is about paying it forward. It is about sharing opportunities, sharing abundance, because when we share opportunities, everything increases not only for us, but for other people. And that's how you create joy. That's how you create lasting, limitless life. And, with that said, at the end of the day, it is about taking action. So take action on what you learned immediately. But until next time, Jillian, thank you so much for being on the show. And Elevate Nation, we will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Elevate. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to elevate your results by taking immediate action on what you learned. For more, visit elevatepod.com.